Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast Injury Show. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Yeah, hey, man. How you doing?
It's going good. You know, not a terrible week here out in the NFL when it comes to people getting hurt. I mean, the Chris Olave thing was a little scary with him going completely unconscious, but I know I saw his brother tweet out that he's up and moving, so that's good. But still, when you have that many concussions, I mean, that's his fifth one in 4 years. You know, when you're averaging more than one concussion a year, that's no bueno. He's under the Tua Tagovailoa category, but overall, not a damning week, I guess is the best way to say it. It's just these receivers, man. We can't keep them under 2 feet.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. They seem to be the ones kind of dropping like flies here. When I look up at our injury list above of players that are on IR and are currently injured, the wide receiver group is the largest. So
yeah,
it is definitely, and it's growing every week. So these guys are getting their boo-boos here at a more rapid pace than the rest of the groups.
Well, see where we're at here. You want to start off with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, let's do it, man. So starting off with the first quarterback, Caleb Williams. I just wanted to mention him. He was able to finish the game, but there is an ankle injury there. It kind of happened right towards the end of the game, and he was kind of walking goofy. Everyone says he's going to be fine, but we'll see on this one. Ankles are goofy and can kind of pop up out of nowhere or kind of swell up after the fact. So just keep an eye on Caleb Williams. Tyson Bagent is his backup, and we've seen him come in and look decent at times as well. So I wouldn't expect a giant drop off here, especially since Caleb Williams, 50% passer this past weekend. He's been up and down. A lot of the rookie roller coaster we've been going through there with Caleb Williams. So
I would expect Jaden Daniels.
Right. I would expect a lot of the similar stuff if Tyson Bagent was in the game.
Yeah, that's nothing crazy there. I mean, I know the coach came out and said like everything looked good too, so he should be fine.
Right. All right, moving on to the next one. Dak Prescott had to leave the game and wasn't able to return. He had the MRI coming this week for a hamstring injury. And, his direct backup is Cooper Rush. Trey Lance is also on this roster, so depending on the severity of this hamstring injury and kind of, I guess, what the Cowboys want to do, if they want to get a look at Lance, this might be an opportunity for them to do that. But hamstrings are tough. I would, if they're given an MRI, I would expect him to miss a little bit of time, but don't know until we actually get the results there. Right?
I mean, this doesn't look good because Dak Prescott said he felt like his hamstring pull a little bit, and then he really couldn't put weight on it. So that tells you that it's at least something, right? Like this isn't just a mild strain. What is it? Mild, moderate, severe. So you call it moderate, I suppose. I would definitely anticipate Dak Prescott missing week 10. Now I also really anticipated Jordan Love missing this week, and he came back and played. With that groin, it's usually a 2-week window. So, but a groin and a hamstring are a little bit different there. And it's definitely highly likely to re-aggravate it. And instead, the fact that he had difficulty putting weight on it, and it said he felt like it pulled a little bit, I would say at least week 10 would be out the window. So you're probably looking at like week 11, week 12 to see Dak back on the field for what so far has been really an underperforming Dallas offense as a whole. CeeDee Lamb, not the number one wide receiver in fantasy football. Dak not put up the numbers that he put up as well. So obviously they have no run game whatsoever. We know Rico Dotto came out and put up a really big week this week with over 20 fantasy football points. But something to look forward to, like you said. I mean, do they go Cooper Rush? You like said came back in there, or just go see what you have in Trey Lance to see if some kind of going on. But at the same time, when you just sign Dak to that huge extension, does it really is it nobody's trading for Trey Lance. Nobody's traded for Cooper Rush. They're on a small term deal.
No doubt. I mean, but Trey Lance is the guy that if he comes in and looks good, maybe all of a sudden there is a little bit of a market for him in the season.
That's
And
true.
if he comes in and looks like we would expect him to look, which is not all that great, then you can just kind of move on. So
I know a couple teams looking for quarterbacks, some local, some not local, but there's some teams out there that need quarterbacks. Doesn't matter what they're paying them, they still need help. So Dak, unfortunately, Superflex leagues you're going to look for help elsewhere. And, even the overconfidence that you felt okay, Jameis looked good last week. Joe Flacco looked good last week. It kind of showed you why they're backups and available in the first place. They both came back down to earth pretty hard this past week, which really kind of puts a damper. Like Jameis, we already know he's a roller coaster, right? When it comes to production, like he's going to have those games where he throws a whole bunch of interceptions. And to be fair, Jameis should have thrown like 3 interceptions a week prior too. Just didn't work out that way. Honestly, the Browns should even won the game week prior because he threw that interception right into the defender's arms and the defender dropped it. And then he threw the touchdown to Cedric Tillman. So right now there's not really a large market if you need quarterback help, but like, I think a big misnomer, Matt, too, is when you say Superflex, right? Superflex tight end premium, you have the extra quarterback spot. Like everybody's so desperate to get a quarterback filling that spot. Like that's not the case. Like go out there and find maybe there's a veteran running back, a veteran receiver. If you take tight end premium, there might be like a guy like Mike Gesicki who with no Heat Higgins again keeps on rolling. Got a lot of thank yous on the Mike Gesicki news from last week's podcast, the tidbit we had on information of what he does with no T. Higgins. But, you could always just pivot and just find another positional player that can give you in those couple of weeks, those double-digit points that you're looking for. And right now, some of these quarterbacks are just giving you like 13, 14 points per week. It's not a massive void to fill out, definitely when you get a cheaper veteran this time of year.
No, I mean the lower end guys, yes, you can supplement with some of those other players you were just talking about, but I mean ideally in a superflex league you're starting 2 high end guys, and if one of those guys goes down, then it is a hard and a large void to kind of fill.
Yeah, I mean Dak right now is averaging 16 points per game, currently quarterback 19 on the year. It's going to be hard to press to find it. We always talk about this, right? Like middle of the road quarterbacks are still top 50 overall scoring players. It's why the super flex position, you got to take those shots. So and you got to be so aggressive doing it. And I mean, there's guys out there right now that aren't exactly overly expensive. I mean, but not cheap at the same time. I mean, a guy like Brian Robinson's going to come in and give you about 13 points per game. He's probably somebody you can probably go out there and get. I mean, Alexander Madison's going to get you about 10, even though he didn't really come out this week and really do much. So it's just really kind of like finding your spot and where you can pivot to and find those age vets and just to fill that void. Because again, I mean, are you going to trade for what are you going to give up for Jameis and like a Joe Flacco right now? Or we don't even know who the quarterback is in Las Vegas right now. There's just not a lot of options out to really fill that void for Dak is what I'm really trying to get at.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Totally. It is hard to come by those guys. So I get it. You have to go kind of pivot to another position and, fill the void for the few weeks a guy like Dak will be missing. So,
and I'm sorry, Dak after this past week is down to 15.6 points per game in quarterback 19. Yeah. I apologize.
Well, didn't play a whole game either. So,
yeah. Well, best ability is availability.
Get out your bananas. It's a war of nutrition. All right. So speaking of nutrition, the running backs must have had theirs because there were no major running back issues this week to really discuss. So we're just going to hop right over that position and move on to the aforementioned wide receiver position. We'll start with the Chris Olave stuff that you kind of already touched on. Obviously, he's got another concussion, and it was just 2 weeks ago that he had a concussion, and he was able to come back in or was it 3 weeks ago? I think he came back in week 8, and then now in week 9 he's got it again. So I would expect this to be a longer term stay on the injured list. What do you see here, Rich?
I don't know, man, because it came with that study that said like past concussions have no indication on further concussions. Like, and a good idea of that was like, so Denzel Ward, right, for the Cleveland Browns, cornerback, like he's had 6 concussions and he got put in concussion protocol this past game and he cleared protocol right away. Like this week by Friday, he cleared it. So I know there's your past history, doesn't really give you the lengths. So, but I mean, he got knocked out, so it sounds like it's a bad one. So, the overall rule is you automatically miss 1 week, right? Like that's usually the case. Definitely from a skill position, you usually miss a week. But we saw a guy like Tyrone Tracy come back this week. He was kind of the outlier there. He came back and played this week. But with Olave, I mean, you don't know. I mean, it could literally be we see him in week 11, or he could be put on IR. It's that much of a crapshoot. But when you start to get these every other week or so, it starts to become a really bad sign of things to come. And definitely for a receiver that's solid, like Chris Olave, I'd call him a solid wide receiver too. For the most part, really good route runner, solid hands. That team is a complete debacle right now. You've been mentioning, Matt. Now they just fired their head coach in Dennis Allen. They're $60 million over the cap. I read a report that said they don't even have contracts they could even really redo or get rid of. Like, they need a lot of help from Derek Carr. Yeah, so they're running on fumes there. But good thing they just extended a 30-year-old running back for 2 years. So that helps the cause. I don't know, man. For me, Chris Olave falls in a category. Like I've kind of reached a point for me. I don't know how you feel about Olave, where once he gets healthy and if he could string a couple games together, like he falls in a category. I would just like to get out from under him. What I can. Like if there's a young receiver in a rookie draft, and I get him even just like one first. I know it sounds silly if there's a receiver I like Olave. If there's an up and coming player that I could pivot on, like and I know this sounds crazy to say out loud again, but like Cedric Tillman again kind of came out last week, had another big week. Like what could you get? Could you get Tillman in like a second probably for Olave? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think in the right situation, you could get even more than that. And you might even be able to get Tillman in a first or something like that if the person is not as high on Tillman. You know what I mean? Like you might be able to do that.
That's what I say. And that's why I want to say like, oh, you probably get Tillman in a first. But like, dude, if you had Tillman right now, right? Like, would you give up your first and Tillman for Olave?
I mean, I would. I've never been. I've liked Tillman. I mean, I've liked Olave, but I've never loved Olave. I think he's a good player. He is not. He doesn't offer high end upside. He never has. He's a catch and go down type of guy. He's not very physical, and now we're starting to see the injuries kind of piling up. Not even injuries, just the head injuries, because he's not a big physical guy. He can't take those big hits, and he's getting rattled quite a bit here in the NFL, and that was a worry of mine, a concern of mine. So I mean, Tillman is going the right way. So if I had him, maybe I wouldn't do that. Maybe it would be Tillman in a second. But I think I'd be willing to do. I'd be willing to take that second and Tillman for Olave, but I'd hope for a first person.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not saying like Olave is a scrub, at all. I mean, he's got games. He has one game over 20 points, one game of 12.8, one of 16.7, one of 18.7. So on a per game basis, he's it kind of sucks. Like his per game basis 9.6, but he had that one game where he got hurt, where he had minus half a point. Game with 3 point this past week again, he gets hurt. So 2.3 points, and those in start of year are 3.1. Like, so it just really kills your points per game value, right? Like, but again, looking at that, us as analysts is what we do, is when we come out here and we give our opinion on Dynasty and fantasy football from studying the game. I was just wondering where you were at on Olave. And I think Tillman kind of falls in that category. He's such a hot name because over to I said over the last 2 weeks, he was wide receiver 1. So if you go back pretty much since week 7, so 7, 8, 9, over the last 3 weeks in PPR leagues, Cedric Tillman is still, over the last 3 weeks, we played 9 weeks, right? So a third of the season, it's been a third of the season, Cedric Tillman is wide receiver 1 overall, averaging 22.2 points per game, followed by Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, Jackson Smith, and Jigba because of that monster 37-point game he just had. So again, like I think Tillman kind of falls in that category of somebody where it's a gamble to do, but at this point it's starting to become a gamble to keep him as well with Olave.
Yeah, with Olave.
And that's all.
Yep. Totally. I mean, obviously the guys behind him, you got Mason Tipton, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is just new to that team, but is on it. There's a guy named Jermaine Jackson I've never heard of, also on that team. And Cedric Wilson is another guy that was on that team, but he's the next guy up on the injury show. So Cedric Wilson went down with a shoulder injury. So Olave and Cedric Wilson, which just leaves Mason Tipton, who didn't get a target this past week, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Jermaine Jackson. So it's really getting thin here. It's there. You mentioned it. This team is not only beat up and kind of going the wrong direction as far as wins and losses. Now they're firing head coaches. The cap's a freaking mess there because of a ton of bad contracts that they've given out. So, I mean, really, New Orleans is starting to feel like one of those places you want to have nothing to do with, aside from Alvin Kamara, who just keeps pumping out fantasy numbers. Like, just stay away from everyone else. Alvin Kamara is your only saving grace there in New Orleans from a fantasy perspective. So
okay,
I don't know.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Foster
Next
Moreau.
guy up. Yeah, Foster Moreau, sure, occasionally.
I was being very sarcastic.
Yeah, occasionally here and there. All right, moving on to the next guy. Keon Coleman for the Buffalo Bills had a wrist injury. He was wearing a brace afterwards. Sounds like there's going to be some tests coming on that as well. Backups there, Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel, some guy, Jalen Virgil, who I also have never heard of. It's getting to that point of the season where there's guys that I have never heard of getting onto depth charts, and it's kind of almost funny because we do this all the time, and how do you not know these people? But
I say it all the time. I see a name and I'm like, dude, I literally study 80 rookies coming into the league. I study depth charts. We do a pre-show. We go down the depth chart of every team. We overlook them, and names still pop up. I'm like, who is this guy? Like,
yeah.
People are like, is this your job? I'm like, yeah. I still don't know who it is.
Yes. Listen, and when you do as much as we do, there's a pump and dump type of mentality to some of this information, and those lower end guys have a tendency to just kind of go in one ear and out the other at times. So I'm sure we covered Jalen Virgil at some point, but I don't remember.
Again, we're looking to put valid starting lineups out there, right? Like,
yeah,
even if Jalen Virgil was the start, like, hey, like everybody start, this guy's gonna be the number one receiver. Like, do you feel comfortable putting him out? I mean, I guess I would if he was the number one receiver and like I was like injured, like in that point. But like,
sure,
yeah, I'd probably start Elijah Moore over him, in that standpoint. Sure. There's so many. Darius Slayton, a guy who just got concussed, is somebody I would put in over him. There's plenty of names to go around and steer clear of that quarterback. All he does is get head coaches fired, and his name is Derek Carr, the consistent loser out there. Good for him because he's super successful. But boy, is he a coach killer, and boy, does he lose a lot.
Yes, he does. But getting back to Keon Coleman, obviously this past, you'll see Mac Hollins probably get a little bit of a bump in targets. I would imagine Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, who just came off a 10-target game, unfortunately had 4 receptions. I would expect him to have a little bit of bump, and Khalil Shakir as well. I don't know that a lot of it's going to go to guys like Curtis Samuel. And
we got Amari Cooper there too.
He's injured as well. That was a guy that we
double wrist injury. Hey.
It was that was a guy that we missed last week because that kind of cropped up late, right? So both.
I read reports that he was most likely gonna miss, and then like Saturday night, somebody's like, "Oh, he's gonna play," so it's like, "Oh, maybe he'll play." I probably shouldn't put him in my lineup anyways, but yeah, double wrist injuries out there. Coleman, he had a drop touchdown that went off his arms. Should have been a touchdown to win an interception. You got to catch those, Keon. You mentioned a guy like Kincaid. Again, he drives me crazy because like the target share is there for Kincaid. It's just not converted to high fantasy football production. And I need that to switch because the household's getting a little grumpy over here. We got to feed the kids.
You and me both, man. I got him in too many lineups for this to continue. So I hope that the case is that Kincaid starts cashing in on some of these target shares. But moving on to the next player on the list, Darius Slayton. has got a concussion. So, or he was evaluated for concussion. If he misses any time, it'll be guys like Jalen Hyatt, maybe Amir Smith-Marset gets a little bit of a bump. But I would expect they're going to pump some of those to Theo Johnson as well, who's been seeing a nice target share and kind of his role's been steadily growing. He had 3 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets this past week. But obviously Malik Neighbors is back as well, and that's just going to be more targets funneled to him as well. So
thank goodness. Yeah, if you're looking for 2, like if you play in shallow leagues at all at the tight end position, Theo Johnson, the rookie, Jatavian Sanders for Carolina, another tight end rookie, 2 players that are doing better than I thought they would do so far.
Yeah,
again, not a lot, but the tight end's a 3-year progression usually at tight end. So they're showing me enough that my interest is peaked, and if available, or you want to do trades, add those players as throw-ins, I'm at least peaked about Theo Johnson and Jatavian Sanders, 2 tight ends on teams that don't have a lot of wide receiver help. Even though Carolina's got Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette, 2 young guys that are at least a little bit you can be optimistic about, and Jonathan Mingo there, where the New York football Giants have nothing whatsoever besides Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton.
Yeah, from a receiver standpoint, obviously Tyrone Tracy, another young guy that looks good as well in that offense.
Yes, he does. Hey, handsome.
From the receiver standpoint, you're right. All right, moving on to the next guy. Here's where we kind of hit the trifecta of the big guys here. CeeDee Lamb went down with a shoulder issue. They're saying it's an AC issue, and there's going to be an MRI to follow. Ryan Flournoy or Cavante Turpin and Jalen Tolbert are the guys that will kind of pick up the slack if he misses any time. I don't know that he will.
But if there's no Dak...
Yeah, but I know. We'll see. CD's had these kind of issues in the past and kind of fought through them. So I would expect that unless it's a major issue that he'll be able to play through it. But just keep an eye on it. You know what I mean?
Thing. Those AC joints. Yeah. I mean, it's something you said a couple of times. It really comes down to pain tolerance, right? Like your arm gets stiff, it gets hurt. It really comes down to that. So I think CD will most likely be back week 10. Maybe he doesn't want to play if Dak's not playing, so he just takes another week out and they get one step closer, get rid of Mike McCarthy. Who knows? I don't know. Another team that's not playing to par.
They're trending in the direction of that thing getting blown up as well in the offseason.
Welcome to the club of scrubs. I'm the president.
Yep. Where the cream falls to the bottom. All right. So moving on to the next one, Drake London went down with a hip injury. He was ruled out at halftime of this game.
Thanks for the tutty, baby.
Yeah, no kidding. At least he did perform a little bit. Two receptions on 2 targets, 27 yards, and a touchdown to save the day. This gives guys like Darnell Mooney a boost. Heck, Ray McLeod even came in with a touchdown this past week.
Did.
You would think Kyle Pitts would get more work, but no, he had one target, 1 reception, 11 yards, whatever.
Drake London's out of the game, man. Kyle Pitts is about to eat. Meanwhile, 48% of the targets went to Darnell Mooney. McLeod got involved there. They're like, yeah, let's get Ray a tutty. Let's get Tyler Algier a tutty. So much fantasy potential there, and the only one really rising to the top is Drake London. I mean, again, Bijan, man, Bijan's definitely a very solid running back. After his rookie year, he came out and produced. He had 21.5 points this year, and actually he's got 4 weeks straight of 20 points. So Bijan's really erupted to go up to running back 3 on the year. But where's the Kyle Pitts era? At this point, it's kind of is the Kyle Pitts just is what it is? Does he fall in the category of of course you can put up some big games, but for the most part, don't cross your fingers.
I think, this was the first down week where he didn't score double-digit points since week 4, where he got goose egged on 3 targets.
True.
So yes. I think there's just going to be some times when it gets ugly in a certain game or 2. But I think, we've seen him get prior to that 5 targets, 9 targets, 5 targets, 8 targets. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, week 4 was 3 targets. So the targets had been going up and up and up and kind of staying up there. This past week was just a weird aberration, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and you're right. After that goose egg, he's put up double-digit points every single week. And coming off that monster week last week, his best week in freaking forever with the 25.1 points. So, yeah, but a situation to monitor again. That hope, the oblique, the hip pointer there for Drake London. Man, Darnell Mooney. We were kind of talking about. You and I went to the game the other day. It's like, man, Darnell Mooney, early season. Once he kind of popped early, that was the aggressive buy of the year right there. Going out to get him, you could have got him for a second round pick, and he's really rewarded you for that at a very high level.
He absolutely has. He's outperformed my expectations. I think he's in a really great situation with a quarterback that is looking for a guy like him to kind of just be where he's supposed to be, and he doesn't need a ton of explosion or separation or anything like. Not that Mooney's not one of those guys, but it doesn't take a lot, and Kirk can get him the ball if he's where he needs to be when he needs to be there. So
for somebody who holds grudges. And when you follow my doo-doo butter list, it's hard to get out of it. Darnell Mooney's been playing some pretty damn good football. So kudos to you, Darnell Mooney. For all the years I doo-dooed on your name. You have shown me wrong.
All right, moving on to the next big star wide receiver to be injured. A.J. Brown went down with a knee injury, ruled out after halftime. This one sounds like it's not going to be that bad. They're coming out and saying, he should be okay, that kind of stuff, all the good signs. Obviously, they're going to be doing tests, all that stuff. The Eagles were really winning the game pretty handily at the time. I know the game got tight, but I think they were up 22-0 or something when he went down, and they ended up winning 28-23. So it did get very tight at the end in that game. But hopefully they were just kind of holding him out as precaution. Obviously, Jahad Dotson, Johnny Wilson, and Ananias Smith are guys that are behind him. But I don't know that any of those guys would be fantasy worthy if he missed time. I think it would be Devontae Smith. It would be Saquon Barkley getting bumps. Grant.
I mean, dude, Devontae. I think Devontae. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I know it was at least like 50% Devontae Smith. I want to say it was like 60, like his target share after AJ Brown went down. Like Devontae Smith's target share went absolutely bonkers after the way. So you kind of tell where Jalen Hurts is going to go. Grant Calcaterra got a little bit more involved. We'll see if Dallas Goedert comes back. Obviously, Saquon Barkley. And how about that catch by Devontae Smith? Oh,
crazy, man. Such a nice catch.
So I mean, we've seen some really good catches so far in 2024. It's been fun. I mean, that Garrett Wilson one on Thursday night.
That was nuts, dude.
That's an all-timer. That's one of the best catches I've ever seen. Like, that's right up there with that Odell catch. Like it was
agreed.
It was that good.
Yeah, dude, that was amazing. And those are the kind of acrobatic plays I expected to see out of Garrett Wilson. We just haven't seen them to this point because that's what he did in college. He was a go up and get it type of guy. He could make fantastic circus-like catches, and now we're starting to see it a little bit. I don't know if it took like him just getting a little bit more single coverage because Devontae Adams was there for him to really take off. But hopefully this is the confidence boost he needs to kind of get going there.
I mean, anyway, he's having a fantastic year. He's wide receiver 2 on a year. He's averaging 18.1 points per game. Multiple games here over, he's got almost 2. The one was 29.1 points, but then this last week 30. So pretty much 2 30-point games and only one game under 10 points for Garrett Wilson so far on a year. So really with a massive step forward in his production. And could it be since Devontae got there? I can't remember what week Devontae got there, but he's been a stud every single week. And having a player like that where Devontae's such a good route runner, and more importantly, Devontae, like how good he gets off the line, like he needs really good coverage. It does nothing but help a guy like Garrett Wilson.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on. That was the end of the wide receiver injuries, and there's just this one tight end injury, and Eric All went down for the Cincinnati Bengals. With a knee injury. It is believed to be a torn ACL. Obviously, they're going to have to confirm with tests and MRIs and all that good stuff. But a guy that we liked and kind of slid in the draft due to some injuries.
It's the same knee, same ACL they tore last year, same time frame, like literally just a year ago. he tore it. And he showed a lot of, like, he looked pretty damn good too. So that's a rough one, man. Same ACL, like 2 ACL tears within a 12-month span on the same ACL. I don't know how that works, but that ain't good.
No, that's typically, athletes will get one in the opposite knee because they're kind of favoring it a little bit too much, and you know what I mean. All that kind of stuff can put too much pressure on the other knee, I believe, and kind of that's the mechanism for a player to go down 2 years in a row with an ACL. It's usually the opposite knee, but this one same knee. So that is a big time bummer, and obviously, the guys behind him are Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson, and Tanner McLaughlin. People will say Mike Gesicki, he's, I think, just a different category of player. To me, like, he almost just seems like a big wide receiver, so I don't know that I want to even list him there with Eric All as a
Drew Sample option. Had an okay game, that game there too.
Yeah.
And with Eric All, I mean, if you want to buy low, I mean, there's going to be a window here too, but like everything I read, that if you have an ACL tear in the same exact knee in that time frame, like the recovery time is significantly longer.
That is a bummer, man. I mean, you hope that the second surgery goes better than the first one, because obviously maybe there was a weakness that they missed or something like that in the ligament when they replaced it or repaired it. So hopefully the second one goes better, and it's kind of wheels.
Can I get 2 of them ligaments? How about you just give me 2 of them ligaments in case one tears? Like, that's a new study. Like, Dr. Richard Dotson is giving people 2 ACLs. Like, he's doubling down. Yeah, I figured, guys, you guys are turning ACLs at a very high rate. I figured I'd just give them 2 of them, really double it down. What I do is just put the one ACL right on top of the other, and kind of looks like a nice vein you got on your knee. Look a little bit more buff anyways, and way more structurally sound. Like, thanks, Dr. Dotson.
Dr. D in the house.
D. Most medical experience I have is applying Band-Aids, Neosporin, and playing the game Operation.
Nice, man. Well, that'll get you somewhere in life.
Yeah, I didn't have steady hands. Come on. Let me get that rib.
All right, man. Well, that wraps it up for today, right? No one else that I missed or anything?
That wraps up the boo-boos, man. We're inching closer and closer to the show. Almost being expired, right? Because this is just an injury show for in season, and we're going into week 10.
I know, it's crazy.
There's only week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I always got to make sure I count that. You want to say 4, 5 more weeks of the regular season. It's it always does, man. Like, we're so excited for the season to start, and it goes by so quickly. It really does.
Yeah, man. Obviously this is when teams are kind of pushing themselves to the top or time to bail. I thought I was in a position to push myself to the top, and you thought you were in a position to fail, and you were like,
unbelievable,
dude, I'm going. He's like, you're like, dude, we were playing against each other, and you're like, dude, I'm totally hoping I lose this game. I want to get the higher pick, and I'm like, good. I want to win, and then now you're for sure gonna beat me this week, and I'm just gonna now I got
to talk to you about this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So,
I'm 2-6. I texted Matt. I was like, because Matt's like, I think I'm gonna push for it. He's like, I think if I can make the playoffs this league, I could win it. And this league's kind of like I can win it if I can make the playoffs. I just got to make the playoffs. So I was like, you know what? I was looking at it. I had a couple tough breaks. I was like, Matt, I'm moving my guys like Jaden Reed to the taxi squad, and I'm just going to go ahead and take the L on this year. I'm going to take the L on this year. I'm going to give you that W you want. I'm 2-6. At this point, I just want to hire a draft pick. So I'm going to move some of my good guys that I have that are still taxi eligible to taxi to kind of pull that like within the code guidelines of tanking, right? And, I scored the most points on a week. My kicker scores 15. My defense scores 16. Of course, like, again, I'm always going to put a respectable lineup there. I put Mike Gesicki in there, knowing that when no T gets in, he's going to play well. Mike Gesicki goes off.
Rico Dowdle went off.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle went up. Now, you still have a chance because you have your kicker left, right?
I have my kicker left, but I don't.
And you're down 20 points.
I was going to say, I don't think he's going to score 20 points or whatever I need.
Who is your kicker?
I don't remember. I don't remember in that league.
I was just
either. I mean,
people could
It's one of the kickers going. It's one of the kickers that's going tonight. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is the only league we even have kickers in still, so I don't pay any attention to that clown. It's Chase McLaughlin.
Yeah, no, excited guy. I was like, oh, Matt has one player left. I'm like, oh, will this player be able to score 20 points? Let me go look. And I'm like, you son of a beach. Unbelievable kicker. Yeah, stupid kickers, man. Oh,
and I need 25, not 2.
I know. And I offered, like you said, you're going to go for it. I offered you a trade to help you go for it. I offered you Joe Mixon. You're like, I'm not.
What did I write back? I'm like, I'm not sure. I got to win like 2 more games in a row before I make a trade like this.
But you would have won. You would have won if you made the trade. You would have had Joe Mixon off my roster. I am so mad. Listen, I don't complain too much because when you're in as many leagues as I am, you're going to face every player. Like it's going to happen, right? Like, you're going to face players that go off. You're like, oh, I can't believe I'm facing this player. And then you got to realize, like, of course I did. I'm in 25 leagues. Like, of course I'm going to face every player. And now you're going to see every scenario. But like when this happens, when you intentionally want to lose, like I'm going to lose this game. I know I want to lose this game. And then you go out and score the highest points. Man, that really sure makes fantasy football fun.
Yep. It's the old kick in the crotch.
Thank you for shitting the bed on that in that league, man. I appreciate you. I love how I'm going for it. I'm like, not me. I'm gonna intentionally lose this game to you, and it doesn't happen.
Well, now we're tied at 3-5, Rich. The battle is on to see who can get the higher draft pick. May the worst team win.
I'll keep doing my part. See you tomorrow.
Adios.